Welcome once again to Open House of Team Reba. I'm Reba Haas of Team Reba, Remax Metro East Side.
And Eric Ossis here from Homebridge Financial Home Mortgage. Happy summer. We're here.
Well, it's officially summer, yes. We just had solstice.
Yes.
Had some great weather this past week. It's been nice.
Finally.
Especially because everyone kept... I know, well, you know, I had that conversation with one of my neighbors the other day because she was just like, I can't, January. And I'm like... It's like this. In fact, her family is the same way. They're like, Lisa, just put a sock in it. Put a sock in it. Because every year you complain. And every year it's the same thing. Like, just stop. So, I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm just a little stupefied that everyone here still gets weird about it. Because and maybe I'm not affected the same because I get up and I walk every day.
Right, right.
Even in the dark months, the fact that I'm just up and by the time the sun is coming up, I'm already up and energized and ready and doing
moving
stuff.
around. Yeah.
I just love it right now because I get up at 5:30 and it's already
I love it.
sun coming up and it's gorgeous.
And 9:30 at night, still
10:30 just the other
beautiful.
night. Yeah, on
It's
summer
wonderful.
solstice it was
finally
so nice.
Yeah, it's amazing when you finally don't have a bunch of cloud cover blocking all of that.
Yes.
I think there's a couple days a week ago where it's like it is so dark out. And when is this going to end? My garden's all confused. Some things are doing well, some things are not. Cherry's no good this year.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get off. Plums kind of had a rough start. Apples are doing great. All that's good. But corn and a bunch of other crops, around the state are really struggling because it was such a cold and wet spring. The strawberry festivals are got no strawberries.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. Because usually I have some strawberries in a little pot that I have at home, and they're just now starting to form.
No, too wet. Way too wet. So that didn't help, that end of it. But,
Too much wet, way too wet.
way too wet. Too much wetness.
That would explain the Pacific Northwest.
Well,
too much wet, way too wet.
Yeah. Right.
We should make a little ditty out
Still
of that.
love it, though. Yes, exactly.
That's hilarious.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Boy.
Well, let's not be a wet blanket on the show.
No, that's right. Not
Hopefully we
at
have
all.
good things to share.
Well, now that the weather is heating up, there's other things that are running pretty hot these days as well.
Well, okay, so I want to hear you, I'm sure, started saying that because you have something that you're going to follow that up with. Because I was going to say something else, but I want to see what you were about to say.
No, roll with it. We'll talk about rates. We'll definitely need to talk about rates.
Okay, well, so here's the number one thing that I keep having happen. I have a ton of people who, every time I'm chatting with them, it's polite conversation, right? Mm-hmm. People will always be like, oh, how are things at work? And honestly, I don't think they care. But what they're asking me
at least they're asking. Yeah.
Yeah, because they don't really care about my individual work.
Right.
They're just kind of like, hey, Reba, what's going on in the market? We're scared.
Yeah.
Right?
Of course.
Because that's really what's going on, right? We have said for the last several months, things are adjusting. Mm-hmm. They haven't fallen apart.
No.
But if you were to look on social media or read online, anything, it's the sky is falling.
Right.
Right? So we're doing yet another show to talk about why the sky is not falling.
Right. Yeah.
And where the opportunities lie.
Yet once again, that's true.
Yeah. And I think it's important for us to keep repeating it so that people do get what's going on. It's not 1 week we were right and the rest of it we weren't. And it's not even about being right. It's about reading the tea leaves, understanding what you're looking at.
And I don't want us to come across as being those people on the radio that are rah.
Yeah.
Get out there, buy.
No, because we've often been the opposite of
contrarian to that.
Yeah.
No, we really are trying to give an honest impression of what's going on with the market. There are going to be pullbacks. There are going to be rallies. It's going to go up and down. It's cyclical. That's the nature of this thing. But we're not in my opinion, at least, we're not in a situation where we're looking at a bubble. We're not looking at things. And there's no data out there to support that, contrary to what you might see on the internet.
And we're making a point in Team Reba to make sure that everything that we're putting out there is supporting material, not just our opinion, But, like I follow a lot of stuff with an organization called Keeping Current Matters that tracks, just like me and you, tracks all kinds of metrics that are going on in the industry.
Yeah.
We look at what the MLS is putting out. I just got done, right before we went on air, I was telling you, like, I just got done posting our, May update, which, right now from an inventory standpoint, because everyone's just like, oh no, it's a terrible time. Like, okay, first of all, there's more choice available to you right now. Right. There's opportunities available to you right now, but it doesn't mean that it is 2008 when we suddenly were climbing, 6, 12, and 18 months of inventory. The MLS just posted that we had 0.97 months of inventory. So it's still just barely under a month.
Yeah, I'm glad you're mentioning that. And even nationally, the inventory supply is 1.16 million, which is about 2.6 months worth of inventory. Now, even that statistic is a little bit nebulous because really what that statistic takes, it takes the inventory and it divides it by the current activity, the sales volume. And so it's a radically fluctuating statistic. So people talk about number of months of inventory. And as a rule of thumb, let's just put it in perspective. If you're below 6 months of inventory, that's still pretty much considered a seller's market. And if you get above 6,
the industry has said 4 to 6 months now. It's funny how since I started 19 years ago, they've changed that from the 6 month mark to between 4 to 6 months.
Again, a nebulous thing because of even just the way that statistic is derived. But if you look at 1.16 million homes for sale nationally, you think, well, that's good. But right now, 55% of those are already under contract.
Yeah.
So less than half of that 1.16 million are actually homes that you could go out and buy.
Right.
Nationally, 85% of the homes listed sell in less than a month still. And I know that's even less time here, right?
Yes. And that's the whole, yes. Most homes are still selling within the first couple of weeks. Maybe not the first couple of days right now, but they're definitely selling within the first few weeks.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing, and mind you, that's the homes that are great location.
Good. Yeah.
Priced well.
Good lookers. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like anything. All the best inventory goes first, of course. So if you're not the best inventory, now you can be kind of the ugly duckling, but if you price appropriately, you're still going to find the right buyer for that too, right? And the thing I'm starting to see is people rethinking the concept of, I could buy further out and have everything done, but maybe now is my opportunity to buy closer in and maybe turn it into the thing I want. Like, I think we're going to see a very small adjustment of where some people are going, because you have to remember also what's happening right now is as we have people going back to work, there are more modifications happening. And I don't think we're going to be settled in any shape or form for at least another 1 to 2 years, because with the whole, like, we can't forget COVID. I mean, you and I still have a sneeze guard in the studio for Christ's sake.
They're talking about taking that down here, but it's still up.
But that's what I'm saying is this is still here. And just coming into the studio today, did you notice the lobby had a bunch of people in it? Half of them masked, half of them not masked.
Right.
And so we're going to still have that vibe of some people are saying, I still want to do the work from home. And other people saying, I've been dying. Oh, I shouldn't say that term. I've been looking forward to going back to the workplace to see my friends. Like, if you liked the people you worked with, you want to see them again and not just on Zoom.
Exactly. And there are employers right now that are saying you must come back. You must show back up
Some
to work.
very large tech companies have some people who are saying, me not so much. Right?
Yeah.
And that also is going to, I think, change where people are choosing, right?
And it's funny because a year ago, I think we talked about on the show how the paradigm had changed, and we were questioning whether we would ever go back to the offices.
So can I tell you from an inventory standpoint locally, we didn't talk about this before we got on air, but that's because it's good for us to share this kind of stuff where you're like, what? So, so our listeners and you obviously know that I bought up in Anacortes in Oak Harbor in the fall of last year. And I'm still watching because I just, hey, congrats to Dinesha and Tobey on the closing of your home in Oak Harbor.
Yes,
Yay.
yes.
So excited for them. But I still have all my searches set up for those areas.
Yeah.
So Whidbey Island and Skagit County, because not only just for me, but for some other people as well. And also just, understanding their inventory as well as, the Tri-County area that I cover the most down here. That is an area, I think, because there's less remote work happening right now, some of that has slowed down.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the areas that are predominantly second home or vacation home areas may slow a little bit.
Yeah, those have, but I will say it hasn't gone, crazy.
It's not crickets.
No, it's definitely still a market that's moving in those outer areas. Because we do still have people from here retiring. We do have other people doing kind of like me. We have a lot of people interested in doing Airbnb. In fact, my bookkeeper, I'm actually just this weekend, I've got a rental house of hers and her husband's up for sale. And that's the next thing they want to talk to me about is like, hey, we've been watching, because she's my bookkeeper, so she gets to see the numbers. So she's like, that looks pretty good. I would like to talk to you about that. So,
right.
So that's the next thing. And I'm going to talk to her about, well, maybe we just have you do that in the same market area as me. And then I can just set you up with the same vendors.
Sure.
Right. So like that's potentially an option. So we're watching very closely kind of what's going on. And I'm not seeing the prices drop. It's just a little bit longer time on market. And that's what I want to make sure and point out to some folks. Yes, the interest rates are up. But there are opportunities right now. And I was telling you right before we got on air, I had talked about this on the show in the last couple of weeks. One of my clients who's under contract, not with you, but with me, we got their appraisal back. And I was so excited because we'd actually negotiated a credit. Came back $68,000 over our contract price on appraisal.
Let's talk about that a little bit when we get back, because as the market turns, things don't always run in tandem, and that could be one of the situations.
Wasn't that a TV show, As the Market Turns?
I think that was The World.
Oh, okay.
Well, hope your world will turn right back to us. We'll be right back. More Open House. Welcome back to Open House with Team Reba. I'm Eric Osnes here from Homebridge Financial Home Mortgage.
And Reba Haas from Team Reba.
We're here every Saturday.
And on Sunday.
Yep, 2 o'clock to 3 on Saturday.
And 3 to 4 on Sunday.
And always on podcast.
Always. We're getting, I think we're around 270 now.
Yeah, it's up there.
For the number of podcasts. Yes.
Yeah.
So lots of awesome.
Had Mike on from American Reporting Company talking about credit. And but optoutprescreen.com, you sign up there and it prevents the credit bureaus from selling your information.
What I'd like them to do is to stop allowing people to get those dumb cards in the mail. David Summers, our former producer here, but now my digital media coordinator, has been bringing, now that he's so much more aware of these things, having listened to our show so many years, he now brings in all the postcards that he and his wife receive that are like, we will buy your house cash, sight unseen, no work necessary, blah, blah, blah. And like, oh, yeah, also another version of scammers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Wish those could get cleared up.
There's one that's been in the press also recently that really be aware of. If you're trying to sell something online, you may get a text from somebody saying, hey, before I communicate with you or give you my email address, I need to verify that you're a real person. So you're going to receive a text and text me back with the code. And don't do that, please. Don't do that.
Phishing.
It's the, on the other side, they're like going online saying, I lost my password. They'll text you an authorization number. You give it to them. You have just opened up your world to them.
Yeah.
And not a good thing to do.
I get a lot of those. I'd like to contact you about this property, and it's a link to like some supposedly a Facebook thing. I never touch the link.
No, never touch the link.
First of all, that's not even a place that we market our properties on.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We don't even do it because we know that there's a bunch of just junk.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Like we know a lot of people are doing things on Facebook Marketplace and whatnot, or I guess Meta is their preferred format now, but Yeah, we just don't. And so you have to ignore a lot of things. But I got to tell you, though, so many people just don't know that. So I guess I'm glad that we keep bringing it up.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of info out there that if you're not regularly online, you could easily fall for
just
it.
Be suspicious. Be
and
careful.
same thing, those things in the mail. Because that was one of the things that David showed me. It was funny, the variety. The ones that make it look like it's supposedly, someone's actual handwriting. Another one is like, oh, it's pink, like warning.
Yeah, final notice.
Yeah, exactly. Like all of that kind of stuff. You really have to look so closely to make sure that you don't get taken advantage of.
Absolutely. And everybody, that if you've just bought a home or refinanced or taken out a new mortgage of any sort, because your deed of trust is a recorded document, and there are people that just mine that information.
Yeah, and if they're contacting you to say you need to sign up for some kind of insurance or something, please read the fine print where you will see this is not from your mortgage company.
They'll make it look like it is. Yes. It'll say regarding or RE.
Exactly.
Colon, home bridge or whoever it is, so just be super careful about that.
Regarding your colon is probably the most accurate thing out of that whole statement. Sorry.
Because you know what happens if you respond.
That's right.
That's right.
And you don't get the good drugs like they give you for the colonoscopy.
Probably not. All right. Enough of that. So before
that said, how are the rates?
Well, right. Well, I wanted to finish a thought too. Yeah. Well, and before the break, you'd mentioned that you had an appraisal come in way higher than the purchase price.
Yes.
And I just wanted to touch on that real briefly because that is still happening. Home prices are flattening out a little bit, but appraisals use comparable sales. They have to pull recent sales, homes that are similar, the recently sold that are similar enough to compare to the subject property. And that data is lagging just a little bit.
Oh yeah.
So right now we are seeing appraisals in many cases coming in higher than the actual sales price because they just haven't quite caught up, with the market. Market's not dropping, but it's leveling off a little bit.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that some during the show too.
Yep, absolutely.
Because like I was saying, I have some listings that went live this week. One of them's down in Auburn and one's up in Bothell. And one of the things that we're doing as part of that is we are offering a buyer bonus. So basically a seller credit that somebody can utilize to do a rate buy down. Because this client that just had the great appraisal come in, we got $14,000 of credits from that seller also towards their closing costs.
Excellent.
So they've got a tremendous situation on a great house that's in good condition that, they're going to do a couple of other little updates to it. That's what part of the credits are for. And it's going to be it's going to be a solid house that they're going to be so happy that they, as you and I have been putting it, took the opportunity when other people ran the other direction. Because this is like, what does Warren Buffett say? It's like when everyone else is fearful, that's when you strike.
Those are the opportunities. Yeah. And the house prices are much more stable than interest rates. Interest rates are cyclical. They're going to go up, they're going to go down. Yep. So if you find that point where you've got the perfect situation where house prices are low and interest rates are low, fantastic. Buy. No question about it. But it doesn't always work that way. They're not always in sync. So now we've got a situation where house prices have finally kind of leveled off just a little bit. Rates are up though. Not perfect timing. So you come up with a two-step approach. You get in, get the price, get the home bought.
Get it locked up.
And then we're going to wait for the recession to hit, which in my opinion is inevitable.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about rates here a little bit because last week the news was all about the Federal Reserve increasing interest rates 0.75%. There's this misunderstanding that they're increasing mortgage rates 0.75%. Right. They can't. The Fed doesn't control mortgage rates. What they control is the federal funds rate, which is a very short-term rate that banks, pay to borrow money to settle their books overnight. That said, the increase is designed, let's not kid ourselves, it's designed to slow the economy.
Right.
And that's the way you get rid of inflation. You vanquish inflation by slowing things down. And in my opinion, it's going to be almost impossible for the Fed to slow the economy without putting us over the top and into a recession.
Right.
That, again, does not mean that home prices will fall. In fact, historically, they don't during a recession.
Exactly.
But interest rates do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're watching for.
Yes.
And the fact of the Fed increasing interest rates, they went aggressive this time, 0.75%. We think they're going to do the same thing in July, by the way. But them increasing 0.75% is a sign that they're finally getting serious about fighting inflation. The bond market likes that. And so when they did this last week, initially we had a little bit of a rally. It pushed interest rates lower. Then the rest of the world caught up and increased their rates, and it caused more of a panic, and rates went higher.
Okay. See, that whole discussion of what you're talking about is why my one client is offering the buyer bonus.
Yeah, right. Because there is definitely uncertainty out there, with all of that. There are different flags that kind of pop up that will signal recession coming, and we've got a few of those kind of showing their heads right now. Here's where we're at right now for the national averages. 30-year fixed rate mortgage, we are over 6%, 6.07%. That's actually up 0.72 from almost 0.75% from a month ago, up 2.8% from the beginning of the year.
Okay, but we were higher a few weeks ago.
Yeah, in 2018, we were kind of about the same level as well. 15-year fixed rates right now, 5.44%. VA and FHA 30-year fixed rates, 5.58%. Jumbo 30-year fixed rates, 5.15%. Still quite a bit. I mean, 0.75%, 5/8% better than a conventional 30-year fixed rate. So we're still putting a lot of people into a jumbo mortgage if we can qualify them for those. Just because the program's called jumbo doesn't mean it has to be a jumbo loan amount. There are exceptions to that. 5/1 ARMs, 5.38%. Not a huge incentive right now for a shorter term ARM rate, although some of our loans, like a 10-year ARM, are pretty good looking right now. You can save yourself about 0.5% off your interest rate going with a slightly shorter term, type loan. So rates are definitely up. That's impacting affordability. And that is impacting the decisions that people are making. And that's one of the reasons that we are seeing home values start to level off, as people have kind of started to realize, okay, this is really affecting us. And in fact, I think I sent you some data last week showing a breakout of how your mortgage payment can change by loan amount, by interest rate, and then also, or how your payment can change by interest rate, by certain loan amounts.
Yeah, and that was actually quite useful in that conversation with my seller. In creating the buyer bonus, because we recognize because the house that they're selling is over $1.2 million, and so we want to be thoughtful about that and say, hey, we understand that this is something people have to think about, and give them some options
and strategies.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, because there are ways to get it done.
Yes, there are.
This might not be as simple as it used to be.
No, but we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get back from this break, because I got to tell you the conversation I had with another agent about exactly this. Welcome back to Open House with Team Reba. I'm Reba Haas of Team Reba, Remax Metro East Side.
And Eric Osnes here from Homebridge Financial Home Mortgage.
Okay, so can I tell you real quick the end of that conversation? So as I was doing all my due diligence for my clients, and this is a past client come back to resell this property. So this will be my 4th transaction with them in the last 5 years, right? So they're a very interesting couple. Very unique personalities. And everything I do for them has to be then vetted out also by their attorney, their CPA, and their wealth planner. So I got lots of eyes on whatever I put together, right? And I was doing my due diligence, trying to put up the right pricing strategy and preparation and all this kind of stuff. But I was waiting for one key person to call me back because there were 2 pending deals in the area where their place was. And I needed to know what the details were.
Sure.
Because I can't just look at the face value of like what's listed there, right? Because we know that the deals are changing sometimes. Well, sure enough, this gentleman called me back, and they did not sell for their asking price. And it's a slightly larger property than my client's. And so this was very important information.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I also noted that he hasn't been in the industry very long. Because
the agent, the
other
agent.
No, but he is sharp. So much like when I got in 19 years ago, I had been doing real estate transactions for myself, prior to going into the industry. So like I came in with at least a knowledge base of things and then just kept building on that. Well, this young man definitely has, like a good head on his shoulders. We had a tremendously good conversation. And as we were going through kind of what his sale process was, what they were dealing with, some of the weird things people were doing to try and negotiate, kind of thing. I told him part of why I was doing this and my strategy around providing a credit.
Yeah.
And because he's new, here's the thing, to your point, not all agents even know about this. Okay.
True.
They just don't. And I'm talking with this young man, telling him like, well, and this is what I want to do. And this is what I'm going to recommend with my client. And I think we're going to go back to those old days of when we used to offer buyer bonuses. And he was like, what's that? and no joke, he goes, this is my most valuable conversation this entire week.
Oh no.
Tell me more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love that he was actually that open to learning. And he's like, I'm going to be talking about that all weekend. He's like, thank you so much. He's like, he actually asked me, can I mastermind with you? Like, he goes, you seem like someone who really knows their stuff, and I want to get to know you, and we should like collaborate, which was really great. Yeah. Because the opposite side of that, mind you, is, we're interviewing for new agents, and this guy's lag number is very similar to the person I was just talking to. And I'm in an interview, and we asked this other young man, what's like, so one of the questions is like, tell us about a time where you had a colossal mistake in your career.
Yeah.
And he proceeds to tell me he's only done 3 transactions, only one of them with a seller. And you're going to recognize this. He proceeds to tell us that they get all the way to the day before closing. He's the listing agent, and he contacts, I believe it was the escrow company. And they were like, oh no, I'm sorry. He contacted the lender just to check in to see how the documents were coming. And the lender went, we're not aware of a contract.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No,
I know you've experienced that before. Yeah. And he's telling me this in an interview, and my eyes got so big. The woman who's helping do the hiring work with us, she was like, I saw you almost come out of your skin. Because then, I kid you not, Eric, the next words out of his mouth, because I think he saw me react with like, what?
Yeah.
And because he said, and I had done everything. I had talked to the escrow company. I'd done this, I'd done that. And he goes, and I realized it's a very minor part of the contract. And I'm like,
no, it's not.
No, it's not. And so we had a bit of a conversation about nothing in that contract is minor because it's all legal. And I'm like, tell me what happened. And then he continued to share. And I went, how did your client handle it? He goes, they weren't happy, but they were patient and they worked through it. And when we finished our interview, I basically told him, I said, here's what I can tell you. You got lucky.
Big
because
time.
That could have ended horribly badly for everyone involved.
And he would have been on the hook for the earnest money, most likely, or portion
of
it.
Buyer agent side for sure.
Yeah.
Questionable for him, but maybe.
Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah. And that's what I told him. I said, hold on, I got to ask you a question. Who else had eyes on this? Because he kept mentioning his designated broker at the time. And I went, so your designated broker didn't even make, because I said, I said, was there a financing contingency? He's like, yeah. And I went, you had the element in your hands that gave you the right to contact that lender ahead of time. Mm-hmm. You had the right to cancel if they weren't performing. Like, here's my thing. You can't say it was a minor inconsequential thing. That was huge.
Yeah.
And you need to learn your contracts. And so we're getting into this time that having experience and knowledge, you don't even have to be in the business for 19 years like me. I was on top of stuff like this year one.
Right. Well, and you have probably multiple failures here. The home buyers didn't contact their lender.
Right.
The realtor didn't contact anybody. Nobody followed up. Nobody was talking to each other and coordinating. And it's really all about communication in these situations.
The buyer's agent's excuse was that they were in between transaction coordinators. I'm like, but that just means you're responsible.
Right. Yeah,
that doesn't mean you go throw hands in air and go, oh.
You can't point your fingers at somebody else. And you know, with a real estate transaction, ultimately somebody's got to be taking charge. And
he should have known that there was an appraisal along the way. There was financing. Like, where was the appraisal?
All of that.
Where was the lockbox check-in? Like, come on. There's like so many steps.
Yeah. We had one couple months ago, and it was a new agent, and I had been talking with the buyers and had not talked directly with the agent because I didn't even know the buyers were being kind of close about that.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so I had sent an approval letter, and I send these sometimes. People say, we're going to make an offer. So I prepare an approval letter, send it off.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
And I don't hear back. And I follow up with those. So it's like, I don't know, 5 days later, I hadn't heard anything back. And I assume, well, maybe they didn't get the offer. But I follow up anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, whatever happened with that offer? Oh, yeah, we got it.
Oh, my God.
And I'm like, great. Can I get I'm talking to the buyer. I go, can I get a copy of the contract? Oh, well, we're in Mexico right now. So let me forward you my agent's information. So I call the agent, and then the agent takes 2 days to get back to me. Now we're a week into this thing, and I finally get the contract, and it's a 30-day closing.
Right.
And
you've probably already gone into default because they haven't made their formal application within the 5-day default.
Yeah. On a property that's on an island that you can only get to by a ferry boat.
Oh, we've talked about this one before. We've talked about this one.
You know, but it's crazy, yeah. But that's that whole communication thing, and of course, you get to the end of the transaction, you're like, why is this not closing in time? It's like, well, I could have used that week up front.
Yeah,
that would have been good.
It's been a long time since I've had an agent. I had thought there were so many more things in place at so many different companies that it was less likely for something like that to happen. Yeah. Especially, in fact, this is the thing, listeners. That's why the multiple listing service incorporated the seller's election to terminate into the financing documents.
Right.
Because situations just like this, as you and I both know, from 15 years ago were happening regularly when we had a busy marketplace.
Correct.
And so, like, that's part of the purpose of these things. And so if you have agents who cannot explain, like, we can't interpret, but we can explain what the documents mean.
Yes.
And if you don't have an agent who can do that, and here's the thing, you'll know. Because if you ask them to walk you through some documents and they keep looking at paragraphs and going, hold on, let me read that again.
Yeah, I want to double check on that one.
And especially if they just start reading the paragraph to you as though you're supposed to be able to figure it out. Like, that's the thing that's very alarming to me. That still happens all the time. Because
every paragraph in your loan documents has a salacious lawsuit behind it. It's written in a very specific way for a very specific reason.
And I'm talking about just the contract, the real estate contract, right? Like, you have stuff that's very meaningful. Like, you even said a couple of weeks ago, oh, yeah, well, if it's a 10-year interest only, it's right there in big, bold letters. But nobody ever reads it because they're usually freaked out about all the stuff they're signing, right?
Yeah,
so
that's true.
But that's why it's important that someone be there. That's why I like when you show up for signings, because you're explaining those kinds of things to people, which your mobile notary may not.
Sort of annoys them, actually, the mobile notaries, because they want to get in there and they want to get out fast.
Because they're paid only a small pittance.
Right. And I'm delaying their Starbucks or whatever it is by explaining
like, I gotta get
things.
To my next appointment. I gotta go.
And they want to get through a signing in 15 minutes, and it's like, no, we're taking some time here.
Yeah. It used to take me an hour to go through a contract with people, which now when we do it electronically is much faster. But that's one of the reasons we're building out all that video series for our clients so we can walk them through, here's what this document is.
Yeah. Perfect.
I mean, even when my seller disclosure, not emails, but videos, they're like 10 to 12 minutes a piece. And I still have people with questions.
Of course.
Because they're,
you can't cover every contingency. With
but we try and be
get the bulk
thorough.
of it. Yeah, you get the bulk of it.
We try and be thorough.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, okay, so we went through the rates. We're talking about like what's going on with inventory, which I do have to tell you, when looking at inventory, just real quick, because I love looking at this on the dashboard for the MLS. So these numbers are up, but here's the thing: it's summer, so duh. Because everyone sells right now. New listings, 2,881.
Nice.
Back on market, 342. That's up. List price reduced, 2,097. Compared to 2,551 pendings.
Wow.
Yeah, oofda is right. So make sure yours looks pretty.
That's right. You don't want to be one of those price reduced people.
Baby.
That's
bell
right.
of the ball. And that's exactly what we do at Team Reba.
Welcome back to Open House with Team Reba. Eric Osnes here from Homebridge Financial Home Mortgage.
And bell of the ball, Reba Haas from Team Reba.
There you go. Good job, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So our housing market is still firing right along. We're in the prime time.
Yeah, this is when most people tend to put their houses on market.
Yeah.
Particularly the ones that are like, well, let's get real. Like we just had kids get out of school recently. Right. So this is that time of year that if people are going to make changes, especially if there's kids either transitioning through the school year or to a different school area or even in the same district sometimes. Right. Because they just don't want the disruption of the time period.
Yes.
Right? All that change does make it more difficult.
Sure. Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So, and that's one of the things we say in our team is that our job, in Team Reba, the way we see our actual job, we don't just sell real estate. My job is to guide you through a complex system so that it's simplified for you so you can continue focusing on your life, family, and work.
Right. That's the best compliment we get. We get to the end of a transaction. I get the same thing, and it's like, wow, that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Because people hear the horror stories and everything. And not every transaction is perfect, and not everyone goes that way. But boy, we sure try.
Yeah.
But the interest rates are having an impact. I mean, if you had let's take a $3,000 mortgage payment. At 3.5%, that got you a loan of $668,000. At 5.5%, that gets you a loan of $528,000.
That's a big
difference. That's a different.
It's really huge.
House. It's a different neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're dealing with now, and a lot of folks are kind of coming around to the reality of that. But I got thinking about that, and I know you're probably the same. When I bought my first house, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't in the perfect home. It wasn't it wasn't my forever home.
Yeah.
It was a starter home.
Yeah.
And
we did a lot of
everybody
renovations.
I know, all of my friends, we all bought starter homes. Some were crappier than others.
Yeah.
Some were okay, but none of them were the perfect forever home.
Well, and we were focused on this was back when I was married, and we were focused on, we wanted to be in a specific neighborhood. And we went through so many houses, and every single one of them was going to need work.
Right.
There was never a perfect home at all in the price point that we could afford.
Exactly.
And so we made that house what we wanted.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And I've done that with most of my homes.
And it didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen right away. And we went through multiple seasons with, I had lawn furniture in my dining room, that was just how it went. And then you built the deck and put in the French doors and redid the bathrooms and the kitchen. And over time you just do that. And then you sell that home at a profit and then take that and get into the next better house and you work your way up.
Focus on that at a profit.
Right.
That is like, let's just take, for example, the house I live in right now, which is valued. I'll just say, I'm going to ballpark estimate it, but knowing what my neighbors have been selling for, it's worth between like $950,000 and $1 million.
Yeah.
And I bought it for $450,000.
I know what you paid for that. Yeah.
And the thing is the people I bought it from, I'm only the second owner, and they bought it for like $17,000.
Right.
And the thing is they added on to it, and that helped. That's why my house is valued more than a lot of my neighbors, because it's much bigger than a lot of my other neighbors.
But I guess my point is that, rates are up a little bit now. People need to be looking at other strategies.
Yeah.
And maybe this will be a 2-step home. Maybe this isn't your forever home, but for heaven's sakes, get in.
Well, and that's
get
what I'm saying.
on that equity train.
My past owners, 17 to 450.
Yeah. Yeah.
In that period of time, even though they put some significant money into it when they did a big renovation at one point in 73, all of that came back to them. Whether you're hanging onto it for 5 years or 50 years,
right?
There's been one little blip on the map.
Right. We've had 4 down years in our market in the last 70.
Yeah,
that's it. So,
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, sometimes we still can't.
I want to pound the desk here.
I know. It's like, listen to us. I mean, it's because it just makes sense.
Right. So what's a starter home look like? That a starter home could mean like you just said, it's a good neighborhood, but it's not the perfect house. Find the ugliest one on the block. No problem. That's great. There's renovation financing available. You can do things like that to buy it, fix it up, or you just, if it's financeable, meaning it's in a good enough condition that all the systems work, there's 5 years of life in the roof, there's no issues of safety or soundness, buy it. And then fix it up over time. Maybe that means a condo, for some people, a starter home or a townhome.
Yeah.
We have a mutual client, good friend of ours that you just helped buy, and the property is down in just outside of Edgewood, and it's a townhome, but it's really, really cute.
Oh, it's so cute. And she didn't want a lot of stuff to have to take care of.
But under $400,000.
Yeah.
In a nice neighborhood, and everybody's friendly and all of that. So, or maybe we have to look at further out and a longer commute and make that compromise.
Well, and that's like the clients that we just had closed the other week. They were looking in South Seattle. They wanted to kind of stay there if they could.
Yep.
But they ended up in Auburn, but with a great, in fact, what was great was, so we did waive an inspection on that because we felt pretty confident about the condition of the home.
Yeah.
Especially because a lot of things had been recently renovated. And it looked like the work was very, very good. And sure enough, Lisa Lotus, who's been on the show of Taurus Home Inspections, she went down a day or two post-closing, and she texted me, and she's like, this house is great. What a win! She was like,
"That's awesome.
What a winner you got for them." She's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so
cool.
excited!" Like, she was so thrilled.
Yeah.
Because their stuff came back, and it was like we thought. It was all supremely minor stuff.
Yeah.
And I was thrilled for them. Absolutely thrilled for them.
Another first time home buyers.
First time home buyer. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were able to take advantage of a 0 down loan program, and you got that offer accepted.
Yes.
In fact, I spoke with the listing agent on that one, because we're always afraid with 0 down, you don't have a lot of power going into your offer.
Right.
Because you might be competing against folks with 20% down, or who knows.
Which they had before.
Right. But when I talked to that listing agent, he said, we're not afraid of 0 down programs at all. We do quite a few of them.
Yeah.
And we're comfortable with that. And it's like, wow, the stars just really lined up for those clients. You know, they were able to get that offer accepted.
Yeah, that couple actually teaches classes too. Speaking of which, we're going to be doing a class coming up in August.
Yeah.
So are we going to talk about the date? I know we haven't solidified our venue, but I think we should talk about the date because we are going to do it.
Yeah.
Which was August 11th. It's a Thursday. And so we're narrowing down the time. You and I keep going back and forth between whether we start at 4 or start at 5. But we are, depending on the venue.
Yeah, we're still kind of zeroing in on that.
We're hoping to have where there's like adult beverages and food available.
Yes.
But yes, between 4 or 5. So if you are interested in a first-time homebuyer class or know somebody who should come to this class, send us an email at info@teamreba.com. We'll start taking early reservations.
Yes.
And then we can update you with the location.
Really important to know the program if you are a first-time homebuyer because some of the first-time homebuyer programs have disappeared over the last few months as the financial markets have been in some state of disarray. So it's a constantly changing thing. So it's really important to be up on what's going on with all of that.
Absolutely.
You know, because you might set your mind on a certain program or a certain interest rate, and then you get into contracts like, oopie, that one no longer exists. So,
oopie?
Yeah, big oopie. Yeah. So be careful about that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But we do teach the first-time homebuyer class that's certified by the Washington State Housing Finance Commission, and it's mandatory you take a first-time homebuyer class for many of these special programs, especially all the zero down programs.
And it's not just for that, because we've also talked about this as we've had companies on for private mortgage insurance, that it can also help you qualify sometimes for lower rates.
It does.
On that as well.
Costs
so it's not just for the other stuff, because that could be,
correct.
You may not even be a first-time buyer.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Absolutely. You don't have to be to take advantage of a zero down program. You just have to earn less than $160,000 a year, and you're in.
There you go.
Yep.
All right.
Well, good. Well, I think we gave a pretty good update on the markets and what's going on out there.
And if you have questions, you can always reach out to us.
For sure. Reach out, info@teamreba.com, Eric at ericasmybanker.com. We'll run those strategies, solve those story problems.
Or you can always slip into our DMs.